There's nothing like being alcohol-free for 18 months and feeling like you're on top of the world and then getting hit with a wave of reality one particular Friday afternoon. Well, that happened to me all the way back in 2018. I was 18 months alcohol-free at that time when I walked into the grocery store to buy some fish for dinner that night. And after a really rough day at work, I found myself battling one of the worst battles I would have in my lifetime. It sounds dramatic, and it kind of was in the moment. There it was, the big display of Chardonnay right in front of the fish counter. In that moment, so many things happened to me when I saw it. Number one was, oh my gosh, I want that bottle of wine badly. And I did. My mouth was actually salivating. I could feel the taste of the wine on my lips. It was so strong and so powerful. I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't felt this way. I haven't thought about wine in so long. And it all happened because I had one of the worst days ever at work. I was tired. I was grumpy. It was a long day. I missed lunch. I mean, all the things that just provoked this idea of saying screw it and buying a bottle of wine was on the top of my mind. And something familiar inside my brain had flipped like a switch. The pull, the want, the familiar ache, like I said, the salivating of my mouth for this Chardonnay was all there. And out of nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, I yelled the word stop out loud right there in the middle of the grocery store. And then, of course, I looked around because I felt ridiculous and I thought, how many people are now staring at me? But I realized that something happened when I decided to say that word, that everything that I was thinking about inside my head paused long enough for me to move to the next step. And that one word, that one moment became the foundation of a 5-step program and method that I'm sharing with you today, known as the SABER Method. And by the end of this episode, you are now going to have a real, practical, neuroscience-backed tool for the first time that life tries to pull you back into old patterns. I know it's going to be beneficial for you, so stay with me. We're going to talk a lot about some neuroscience up front because I need for you to understand the power behind this tool. And from there, you are going to feel so much more in control, which is what I want for you. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to Beyond the Gray, the podcast about gray area drinking and how it impacts your health, relationships, purpose, and faith. This is where we have real conversations about the topics successful men over 50 don't usually talk about out loud. If you've built a great life but keep asking, is this it? You're not alone. When alcohol becomes your go-to off switch and your marriage, health, or purpose feel disconnected, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carrie Schwer, and this, my friend, is where the gray ends. Welcome back to the show. If you're new here, I'm Carrie Schwer. I'm the host, and on this podcast, we talk about all things in the gray area, everything from habits, from drinking to relationships with spirituality and business. So welcome in if you're new. I'm glad that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about the SABER Method, and I really want to share a few things up front. So bear with me as I get through this important front part here because it's going to help you to better understand why this tool works, okay? So first, I want to start off with the lie. The lie is that most people believe that they just need more willpower, that if they had it, they wouldn't be struggling. And I know for me, when I first quit drinking, I just thought I'll just have to white knuckle my way through. But it's not about that. I want you to understand that willpower is finite and it runs out, especially in those moments of when you're tired, you're stressed, or you're emotionally depleted. And that episode that I told you about just a second ago about at the grocery store, that's where I was emotionally that day. I was so depleted. And you know what? We just are told over and over again that we just need to push through it and to get through it. that it'll be okay. But that doesn't make it easier. It actually makes it harder. And it's not that you're weak, but it's the fact that nobody gave us a map to what to do in that moment. Today, I'm giving you that map. I'm giving you the SABER map. It is the neuroscience behind why this works and why I'm excited to share it with you. So first, let me tell you what's going on inside of your head when you're in that moment. Now, I told you when I saw that bottle or that display of Chardonnay, what was happening in my mind was it was the old familiar pattern that I was used to. Bad day equals drink wine. It's that simple. Celebrate, drink wine. I mean, everything was whatever it was, drink wine. That was my answer. So what was happening was I was dealing with something known as cognitive dissonance, which is when you have two or more incongruent thoughts battling inside your head at the same time. And this is an internal power struggle. It's really who you were versus who you are becoming. And every time we have this power struggle of who you were and who you want to become, we can really find ourselves in this tug of war of should I or shouldn't I? And this is where I was at that moment. I was no longer the person who drank. I was 18 months sober at that time. So I had become a new version of myself. I became a non-drinker. But seeing that Chardonnay made me want to have that bottle of wine. I reverted back to what I used to be, who I used to be, the person who shows up wanting to just escape. But that's not who I was at that time. So this cognitive dissonance doesn't just show up in our drinking or our habits, but it can also show up in relationships, in our career. It can show up in our parenting and even with our health. And it's easy to do because we have these old neural pathways. They're so deeply ingrained in who we used to be that those familiar patterns activate very quickly before the conscious mind even has a moment to catch up. That's the crazy part. We default back to old ways very, very quickly. Why? Because you've been having lots of practice over the years. And that pathway becomes the road, becomes the path. Like it really is a path. It becomes this familiar pattern and road that we always go to, that we default back to. And I want you to understand that a lot of this comes with how we feel. There are 6 core universal emotions that psychologists have identified over years of studying this. And those 6 core emotions that we have is anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. And when we have these emotions, they can trigger us into some sort of action because the primal brain will fire first. So in that moment, when I was standing there in front of the display of Chardonnay and I had a bad day and I was tired, I had moved into what we call a protective state. When we move into a protective state of mind, we're moving into a state that doesn't always serve us very well. We move into being anxious or afraid or angry or stuck or confused or sad or just wanting to escape all of it. We're moving, think of protective, we're going inward, or we can explode outward, one of the two, versus an expansive state. An expansive state is when we feel joy and we're clear and we're grateful and we can be more creative and we can have energy in those expansive states. Now, both of these states, whether expansive or protective, they serve us. They really do. But there's always a path back to expansive. And today, the SABER method and what I'm going to share with you is a way to do that successfully. Let me share a term with you because I think this is very important. It's neuroplasticity. It is the brain's ability to form new pathways with deliberate, repeated thought. The more we practice this, the more we move into new ways of thinking, we can create something called neurosculpting inside of our brain. It's the ability to shift the brain from a primal state to an intellectual state. Now, this doesn't happen by accident. It takes deliberate awareness. And if you caught last week's episode, I talked all about intentionality and having awareness. The SABER is building on that episode. So if you haven't watched that episode or listened to it yet, go back and listen to it. It's episode 18. The SABER is a deliberate awareness sequence for you to use. Each step will move you further from the reactive brain into the expansive state of being, which is where you want to go. And every time you walk through it, every time you do this and you practice the SABER, it's building a new pathway, and it gets a little bit deeper, and the old one gets a little bit smaller and a little bit quieter. It will help you tremendously. So without further ado, let's get into what the SABER method is. I've already alluded to the very first step, which is to say the word stop out loud. It's important to say the word out loud if you can. When you find yourself in those moments of cognitive dissonance, or you're battling a decision, or you're battling with these thoughts that just won't shut up inside your head, when you say the word stop out loud, you interrupt the power struggle. And I want you to do it with me right now, okay? You ready? We're going to count to 3, and I want you to say the word stop as loud as you can. Wherever you are, if you're in the car or whatever, I want you to do it with me, all right? So let's go. 1, 2, 3. Stop! And you notice, even just for a second or two, your brain gets quiet. That's because it interrupts that power struggle. Now, it won't be forever. You only got a little bit of time here to work on to moving on to step 2. But saying it out loud activates a different part of the brain than just thinking it. It creates this pattern interrupt. It's a break in this automatic firing that happens. And you don't need to feel ready or strong. You just need to be able to say that one word of stop out loud. Because you know why? Stop is permission for you to pause before you act. That's what we're doing here. We want to give ourselves the permission to say stop just enough to give you a pause so you can evaluate what's going on before you act. And that's where the power comes from. So now you got the first step down of saying the word stop out loud. The second one is acknowledge. After you say stop, now I want you to acknowledge what has been going on in that moment. I want you to be present with what is happening. I don't want you to run from it. I want you not to judge it. I just want you to name it. These are the old thought patterns. This is the old version of me. This is an acknowledgement, not an agreement. You are just observing, not obeying. That's really important for you to know, because when you acknowledge that you had these thoughts and this desire and this cognitive dissonance, you're just acknowledging it. You're not agreeing with it. You're not obeying it. You're observing it. And that thought is not a command. It is such great information for you. It gives you power when you are able to pull back and see it for what it is. And I have to tell you, 99.99% of the time, whatever it is that you were thinking isn't the truth. It's not the real truth. It is always, and I mean always, a story that you're telling yourself that makes sense, because we don't like open loops. I want you to be able to name it so you can navigate when you need to resist this. Because we love to tell stories. We love to bypass the fact filter. So if you were to run those thoughts inside of your head through a filter of what is factual and what are feelings, I guarantee it's going to be more of a feeling that you're reacting on rather than facts of what's really going on. We love to tell ourselves stories, and whatever reason, our brain loves to create them so we can justify what is happening. But I want you to just acknowledge without judgment here, what is it that I'm actually thinking about and feeling in this moment? And then ask yourself, is it true? Is it really, really true? Or could there be something else that is true? And by the time you walk through that, which will only take you a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds max, you will start to see that when you name it, you can then navigate your way through. Now let's talk about the next step of SABER, which is to breathe. Taking a deep breath is by far the fastest way to calm the nervous system in the moment. When we move into fight, flight, or freeze, we tend to have shallow breathing. We tend to get more angered. We tend to hold our breath. And when you breathe, it gives you a way to shift the automatic nervous system from fight, flight, or freeze to rest and calm. Now, you don't have to do this for a long time. 2 or 3 really deep, good breaths is going to help you, and it's enough. You don't need any formal practice. Just breathe. That's exactly what I did that day in the grocery store. After saying stop, I acknowledged that my thoughts were old patterns, that's what I used to do. That's not who I am now. That's the old version. That's not the new version of me. And I realized that I was dealing with a lot of stress throughout the day, and it was a rough day at that. I was tired. I was hungry. I had all the things going on, and I realized, oh my gosh, I need to take a couple deep breaths. And when I did, it was enough to take the edge off so I could keep going. And when we breathe, I want you to know it's this psychological bridge between the reactive brain and your thinking brain. It gives you just enough time and moments to help get you to move forward and to keep going. I don't want you to miss that step of breathing. Speaking of steps I don't want you to miss, is the next one, which is the one out of all in the SABER method people tend to overlook, and it's one of the most important, which is embrace. I'm saying EMBRACE, embrace. I want you to give yourself the grace that you deserve. First and foremost, know that you are human, and this is hard. Embrace the awareness, number one. Like I just mentioned, I stopped, I acknowledged, I breathed, I'm here. There's something about self-compassion. It's not self-indulgence. It is the foundation of sustainable change. You are not your old patterns, but you are allowed to have them still. They will pop up from time to time. Why? Because again, you're human. It takes time for this to work. I was 18 months alcohol-free at that time. It can take up to that long, even longer, for those neural pathways to become solidified and become your new way of thinking. It takes time. So embrace and give yourself the grace to know that it is the moment that you recognize that you have a choice. You do, because all gray areas are a choice. And can I tell you, that alone is so powerful. Don't miss the embrace step. And last, but certainly not least, is the R, redirect. I want you to be able to make a new intentional decision. I want you to find one thing to be grateful for and then let that anchor you into the present. Ask yourself, what does that person I am becoming do in this moment? This is where the new neural pathway gets carved every single time. I want you to be able to redirect with gratitude and then make a new decision. When you make a powerful new decision for yourself in that moment, you're going to be so much more powerful. And let me give you an example for me in that moment that I've been describing. After I embraced where I was, knowing that I'm human and it's okay, I'm going to have these old thought patterns. I gave myself the grace. I then moved into gratitude, recognizing that this is an old pattern. I was grateful for seeing that it was an old pattern. And my new powerful decision was, let me go pick up the fish dinner that I came in here for. Let me then stop by the drink aisle and pick up some Perrier, which is what I used to drink all the time, or tonic water, and take that home with me. And that's what I did. So making a powerful new decision by redirecting your thoughts, redirecting your action will always put you in a power position. And I don't want you to miss that. You know, a lot of my clients, as they use the SABER, they'll use it as a verb. You can saber your way through any tough time. That is the goal that I want for you. So here's the practice that I want you to do today. I want you to write out SABER somewhere visible that you can see it. Maybe you have it in your car, you have it on your phone somewhere, you have it at the mirror on a sticky note, and every single time that you feel a pull into an old pattern, any pattern, I want you to walk through the SABER method. Say stop out loud if you need to. And don't worry about who's watching or what's going on around you. This is about you being in control of your own thoughts. And notice where you get stuck. Because you know what? That's information for you. It's important. And you don't have to do any of this alone. Really share it with somebody, whether it's a friend, a coach like myself, or somebody that you feel very close with. It will really help you to process this when you're able to talk about it, and keep practicing the SABER. It's one of those things that once you practice it once or twice, you're going to get really good at it. And you know what the best part is? It doesn't even take that long. So some questions for you to sit with today is, what is one protective state that you've been living in lately? And what would it look like for you to take the first step towards something more expansive? You don't have to fix all this at once. Matter of fact, you're not going to. Give yourself the grace by embracing that you're human. So let's recap those 5 letters one more time. We got stop, saying stop out loud, acknowledge your thoughts where you are, run it through the filter. Remember, ask yourself, is this really true, or could there be something else that is true? It's very helpful to not put judgment on those thoughts that you're acknowledging. You're just acknowledging them. So stop, acknowledge. Breathe. Take a few deep breaths. Get yourself in a calm state before moving on to embrace, which is to give yourself the grace that you're human. You're going to be thinking things that you don't always want to be thinking about. It's not all your fault. It is part of our brain system and how it works. It's that deep embedded old systems and patterns and neural pathways that we're trying to change. And when you purposely do the SABER method, you are starting to break those patterns. Know that that is true. This is all based on neuroscience. So you are in control when you do this. And finally, redirect. Redirect by moving into something of gratitude and then making a new powerful decision into what it is that you truly want. And if you're ready to go deeper, head over to hello@greytonic.com and send me a message where you and I could talk further on how I can help you directly with your power struggles. Will you do me a favor? If you're not subscribed to the show or following, please go ahead and do so. It really helps the algorithm and for others to find the show as well. And remember, there's always life beyond the gray, and it can begin with the SABER method. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.